Okay, everyone, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. This June 7th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is now called to order. Ms. Linder, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Buck is excused this evening. Council President Winland.
Here.
Councilors Wynn.
Here.
Burdick.
Here.
Rapf. Here. Mans.
Here.
And Mboop.
Here.
Great. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance by standing, facing the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first order of business is the public comment. Ms. Linder, has anyone provided public comment this afternoon? Okay, I have one comment. Jan Castle, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So
First
did you draw the short straw with Duke?
No.
Oh, no.
This is all my own.
Oh, okay.
This is cool. This is the first time I've been here. And I can keep my head up and still be heard instead of being down here.
That's right.
Great. Okay, I'm Jan Castle. I am co-chair of Prep LO. And I want to thank the staff for the great report that they are giving you about emergency management, and in particular, hiring an emergency manager to coordinate all of our multitude of emergencies. I think that it is a great list they've given you. You'll notice that it comes in two parts. The first part contains the projects and objectives that they want to see addressed now that a part-time person could attend to. Then there are 3 points at the end that are more broad picture kinds of things that would not be addressed immediately, even though they are important. And the reason for that is that it would take more staff time to do that, and would necessitate you hiring a complete FTE to fulfill those roles. The most important thing on those to me is the section that says this person would coordinate with LOSD and various other groups. And the LOSD one is key because the school district owns the buildings that the public has financed to be usable as emergency shelters or communication centers or distribution centers in the event of a major emergency, particularly the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. There's a high expectation that amongst the public that those would be available for their use, but there is no official planning that has been done to figure out how buildings that are owned by the school district would be used by the city, who is a separate, of course, legal entity, but is responsible for mass care of the population in the event of an emergency. The school district is not, they're responsible for their children. But they provided these great buildings that are built to be usable right after the earthquake, and there's a high expectation that they would be available to be used that way. That planning is something I would love to see this person take on, the coordination between the school district and the city. I chaired a small working group in 2019 of representatives from the school district, police, fire, and neighborhoods to start working out what it would take to establish specifically shelters and medical care for the public in that event. And we took that as far as we could until we got to the point where we would need agreements between the city and the school district. And we were volunteers and not in a position to do that. So at that point, I handed that off to Megan Phelan, knowing full well that no one at the city had the bandwidth at this time to really delve into that kind of coordination, because it would be a big job. Now that we're looking at somebody who could do that, I am very sorry to see it on the delayed list. To me, these emergencies all have common elements, common planning elements. The things that you would do for one emergency are the things that you would do for another emergency. To me, they all have to be handled at the same time. This person's job would be to pull together those various strands of all the different emergencies into a whole, and you can't really do that leaving the earthquake out. Think of what would happen if we were having one of these emergencies that we've had recently and the earthquake hit. You'd have all of your first responders, public works, city council, everybody is going to be dealing already with emergency 1 when emergency 2 hits and blows everything apart. With some minimal pre-planning, you could have equipment in place and volunteers lined up that could step in and create a safe place where people could come for information, for first aid, for shelter, for food, for water, for warmth. Those buildings could provide those kinds of things. And, but if you had no planning at all, you would have people standing at the doors of these schools saying, we're supposed to be able to be taken care of here. What happened? Who dropped the ball? Much better for them to feel that the city's got their back. They've got this new person who's going to look at all of these things, and they will, and if they are included in that planning, then they've got a stake in it. They feel they've got something to offer. They have a purpose, and that's what you need for people to feel safe. There's also one additional element. Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Well, you're kind of over the time.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Like a couple minutes. You want to wrap it up?
Yes. The last element would be a new wrinkle is security. What we've seen from the pandemic with people just coming apart at the seams and acting out with gun violence is something we did not need to consider before. But when you have people congregating in one place and people who are coming unglued, you need to consider security. So I think there is an urgency to this, and I would urge you to consider a full-time employee for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, there's no other citizen comments. Great. We'll now move on to the study sessions. We have 2 study sessions. The first one on emergency management update, and we will have our Assistant City Manager, Ms. Phelan, who is going to be providing the presentation for today. Along with, she really brought in all the brass today as well, so well supported.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President Wendland and Council. Good afternoon. My name is Megan Phelan, Assistant City Manager. First, I want to start off by really acknowledging and thanking the City Council for prioritizing emergency management in their 2022 council goals to ensure a safe and secure community for all. As we've seen through our work in the community through Prep LO and even the neighborhood enhancement grants with emergency management funds being used for storage of materials and supplies for neighborhoods, this really is an important goal for many reasons. I also want to acknowledge our employees that respond to emergencies, certainly those in police, fire, and public works specifically, who tend to be the ones who respond the most. Throughout the year, often as it occurs, emergencies happen after hours, at inconvenient times, weekends, holidays, and really want to give a shout out and acknowledgement to them of all their hard work and the good work that they do to keep us continuing on as an organization and serving the members of the community. They do an amazing job. I also want to be clear that the need to improve our emergency management capabilities is not an indication or a reflection that there are any concerns or any areas of our inability to respond to emergencies. We are able to respond to emergencies, and we do so, and we have, and will continue to do so. But rather, it's an acknowledgement that over the course of a few years, we have seen more complex and less routine emergency situations come up, and we expect that trend to continue. It wasn't too long ago, 2 years ago, that we were dealing with COVID, a pandemic that quite frankly wasn't addressed in our emergency operations plan on how we would manage continuing of operations under those circumstances. You all recall the 2001 February ice storm where we had a long time power outage. We had to deal with multiple different situations that came up throughout the 5 or 7 day period, let alone the many months of debris cleanup and management that we had to handle after effect. And then, quite frankly, most recently, it wasn't too long ago that I actually stood next to the windows here in council chambers as we had a very dynamic rainstorm that came through on a Monday afternoon that temporarily, although it was short lasting, temporarily overran some of our stormwater systems to the point where it actually shut down Highway 43 for a temporary amount of time, but still significant impact to the traffic that day. So as you're aware, the City Emergencies Management Program is coordinated amongst multiple staff representing several departments. And what we have before you and what staff is recommending is that we invest in emergency management efforts to ensure that the city is able to meet community expectations related to emergency and disaster response. And we are proposing that we accomplish that through hiring a half-time employee or possibly engaging in a professional services contract with a firm or consulting agency or consultant, or by exploring the possibility of sharing staff with another local jurisdiction. The staff report outlines the body of work that we anticipate that this person would be charged with doing and focus on, but I also want to point out that there really are two components that would require policy work on behalf of the City Council. The first of those is review and update to the Lake Oswego Emergency Code. That would take some review by staff and then decision points by the City Council with regards to policy level decisions. And then also to ensure coordination on policy decisions related to climate resiliency and funding of the capital improvement projects. Again, those are policy level decisions that would take time and effort on behalf of City Council to give staff direction to move forward on. The rest of the projects and outcomes defined in the staff report would be taken up by the person we hire a contract with continued staff assistance. Staff recommends this evening that council direct staff to proceed as outlined in the staff report, and at this time I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilor Rapp.
Thank you. I think this is a great plan. I think that my only concern is whichever direction we go with who we hire, if it's a half-time employee or a consultant or sharing your resources with another city, I would just hope that whoever that is has a keen mind about the idiosyncrasies that the planning of Lake Oswego kind of come as the idiosyncrasies of Lake Oswego and how it's originally planned come into play, and so that whoever we hire has a keen awareness of that and how that all plays with the emergency situations that we have. So sometimes when you hire someone, when you work with somebody in another city, like if you were to work with someone in Sherwood, it's a newer city, so they may not have the same sewer problems that we do, or et cetera. So it's not really a question, more of a something we should just keep in mind. So.
Absolutely, thank you.
Anyone else? This is unusual for this council not to have opinions. Yes. Oh, you did? Oh. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, no, thank you, Megan, and thank you for your work, and thank you, our staff. Like, it's very important that we say that even though the emergency that we need to tackle right now, that our city is responding quite well in many of the emergencies we faced. But it's also important to look. I don't know. My question is, the stuff we are talking about, is it the emergency of that? Is it going to be a full-time or a part-time? Because in which one is like, should we have it now, and in which case we have to readjust our budget for that? And I am for it big time, because I know there are emergencies we never thought we would have. And when I listen to our engineers about our sewage system and everything, it won't hold if we have certain, rainfall that lasts 2 days even, in the extent we have last month. So my question is, do you want us to just like act now on this thing? How urgent it is?
So currently, right now, the staff report is requesting a part-time FTE, and we would be creative about how we would look to staff that initially. And if at some point, that, however, that would have to be absorbed through the city's budget, either through an FTE additional add in probably the city manager's office, or additional funds dedicated to the city manager's office department if we did the contracting route, or perhaps even conjoin with another city to engage in those efforts. That does come with a trade-off, as Ms. Castle mentioned in the staff report. There are other areas where we will, that still have a need, but will not be addressed in the immediate future. And those really are a couple things with regards to better and more detailed relationships with our community partners, with other emergency-oriented organizations and other public utilities to ensure really greater emergency management coordination. Also, going for any grants or any sort of funding through any grant program will also be something that we would not be able to address immediately. And then again, providing a higher level assistance to different departments to develop community continuing operation plans and other emergency-related plans that they might have that are more specific to their day-to-day business needs. It's conceivable, certainly, Councilor, that in the future, if the body of work is something that the council wants to continue to invest in, that it could increase to 1 FTE, but at this time, staff's recommending a 0.5.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan.
Councilor Burdick.
I just want to thank you for all the work on this. I think it's really important that we start thinking about the future and what could happen. I think we've done a great job in the past coordinating with all the different emergencies going on, but I think they're going to become more frequent. So thank you for your work on this, and I fully support it. And to Councilor Raff's kind of point, I think, though I'd like to look at all options like you're going to do, I kind of lean towards having an in-house person just so that they can really get to know the nuances of our community. But I'm just excited that we're getting going on this. Thank you.
Councilor Nguyen.
Again, just echoing this gratitude that we have to you just to be able to take on this work, this important work. Just a couple of questions about, you know, if we were to hire this person as a part-time person or a contract, you know, I'm like my colleagues have suggested, I think it's something that needs to be you know, familiar with our city, but I would even go so far as to say somebody that might be able to living here because God forbid something happens and they're on the other side of the river and we need an emergency management person. That might be something we would consider. Then second question I had was, I know that in cases of emergencies, City Manager Bennett often is the person is in charge, right? So would this role be in conjunction with your office, or would?
Yeah, I think that's what Megan was suggesting, that this person would be housed in our office. I know other cities I've worked for, sometimes it's in the fire department. Sometimes they have their own department, but I think in this case, the way we operate, we would want this person to be in the manager's office. And I guess I want to draw attention to one thing that Megan said, is we're seeing different kinds of emergencies than we have in the past. They're more disruptive, they're less predictable. And I will also say, although I think we are all concerned about Cascadia and we do need to plan for it, I do think that our work there, which is emphasized here, is in helping our residents be prepared, because I believe that all of the agencies that we will work with will be overwhelmed when Cascadia happens. And so for the first probably week or 2 weeks, we're going to need our residents to be self-sufficient because we may or may not be able to get to them. So, and I do think that that's something that Megan's emphasizing, is that collaboration with neighborhoods and Prep LO for those kinds of emergencies. But I do think we have work to do in improving our capabilities with still significant but somewhat less severe emergencies.
And Councilor, when I do want to acknowledge your comment and about having someone either close by or who lives in the Lake Oswego.
Councilor Mans.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that this is something that has been on the back burner, but foremost in everyone's mind. So thank you so much for taking this on to all the staff. I know we have such a myriad of things we weren't even thinking about 5-10 years ago. Forest fires in Tryon, devastating rainstorms, tornadoes, who knows, right? It's vitally important in Prep LO, and I see the castles out there, and we heard from Jan, that each community, each street be prepared within themselves. I mean, obviously, we want to keep city operation going, but that community engagement is paramount. Knowing more or less where each of us lives, there will be people that won't be able to make it through to get to a safe building or site and may end up in a field or the middle of the street or whatever it may be. So really appreciate everyone doing this. Thank you so much to all involved.
Well, I'll say the last words unless anyone else, well, no, not necessarily best. I do want to recognize Jan Castle. She has been an advocate.
Absolutely.
When I was on the school board, she was one of the drivers on getting the new Lake Ridge Middle School up to the next level. And the persistence that it takes sometimes for us to reach certain levels, it takes us a while to figure it out. I think we've done it with this building. I think we're looking at different things for the new building. I think the Ops Center is somewhat, I won't say it's earthquake-proof, but it'll still be standing. It's pretty darn close. And I think these are the long-term strategic actions that we have to take in order to keep a lot of our citizens protected in the future. I do want to emphasize this position to work very strongly with the school district. And I don't know whose jurisdiction technically it is when it becomes an emergency. I think those are some of the questions that going into the Article 12.20, the emergency code, I, as a counselor, would love to get into that as you prepare that and figure out what are the best strategies, because it's probably been a while since we've updated it, right? And as you said, there's new things out there. So perhaps that is a very wise use of council time. The other thing is when it comes to funding, again, I'm supportive of this position, but I also want to know if there's something that within the city that maybe we can look at that we may not prioritize as high as this. And that would be my one challenge. If we feel that we have the extra money to fund this, I'm fine with that. But I also don't want to just add without looking at all priorities, because we, as a council, are very positive to add new things to the budget, and our city manager is very good about reminding us that there is a limited number of dollars in it. So I just want to make sure that if there's anything that we can either tie this in with a current person that's working half-time, that maybe they become full-time, or if there's a different assignment that maybe somebody has that could be put in this as a permanent position. I do think they need to know Lake Oswego, and they need to know great relationship building strategies to deal with all the different subgroups within Lake Oswego, between not just city, but everybody else. And they're going to have to be evangelists to get Prep LO going. I know it was pretty big for a while. There was kind of a streak and everyone was in on it. And then things kind of calmed down because we didn't have a sort of a disaster. And then all of a sudden, everyone becomes aware of it a little bit more, and I'm hoping that maybe we can renew that. I think one of the biggest things that I took away from training was that we have limited resources in a city, and I think people have this comfort zone that we provide great community services, and that when we have this big disaster, they're just going to call on their cell phone that they think is going to work, and all of a sudden the cavalry's going to arrive, and we're probably going to be just taking care of high priority things, and we probably will be living for a week or two on our own. And I don't think people totally get that yet. So but love the report. I'm giving you an A+ for concise. Out of the 194 pages, you were only 3 pages. And so you get the prize for being concise and as you always are. So any other questions, council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going on to 5.2, the school district intergovernmental agreement update. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Bennett to explain this.
I'm going to invite Director Enderholm to sit up here because I know most of your questions will be for him. So I actually think one of my very first meetings when I got here to the city of Lake Oswego was with the school district, and we were talking at that time about the thing that became the Lake Oswego Recreation and Aquatic Center project, and also the use of fields and gymnasiums. It's been a topic that the city and the district have worked on since the early 1980s, actually, and the current agreement that we have really is the base agreement came in 1988. And in a nutshell, as I wrote in the report, what the current agreement says is that the city will maintain the athletic fields at the school district properties in the summertime. And in exchange, the school district will essentially let the city use their athletic fields and their gymnasiums for city recreation programs at no charge. That's essentially what the agreement says. There's some more detail in there about each other's use and priorities. There have been several modifications over the years to the agreement. Probably most notably is when the high school fields were turfed. The city didn't schedule those athletic fields anymore. Well, fast forward to 2022, 2021, and you have, first of all, more turf fields for the city. We operate Azalea Field and also the 2 ball fields at Waluga, and you have the school district bonds paying for turfing of the athletic fields at the high schools and also at the junior high, middle school properties. And so the need for the city to actually maintain a grass ball field for the district has substantially gone down. And the playability of a lot of the fields that we have in the community has gone from really being just the summertime dry months, although I don't know when we're going to get those in 2022, to year round, because turf fields can be played on year round, which essentially has led both the district and the city to the conclusion that we need to make sure we're looking after our own priorities to be able to maximize sort of the mission-based use of the fields and gymnasiums operated by each entity. I wrote a lot more about that in the staff report. But essentially, a very visionary agreement from 1988 has served us really well for the past, that's an embarrassingly long period of time, 34 years. But given where we are with the use of our facilities and sort of the various needs of our entities that are really mission-based, that agreement is no longer going to serve us quite as well as it has in the past. So we're proposing to both entities, and I think the school board talked about it last night, essentially a phased termination of the agreements. The first phase would be in October of this year, when the city's use of the gymnasium space at the district gyms would no longer be free. And then part of that would be the district would take over the city's youth basketball league, City League basketball, to make sure that those young players still can play at an affordable rate. And then beginning on January 1 of 2023, we would part company on the athletic fields. And I outlined in the staff report the agreement in terms of priorities for scheduling and sort of where we would all fit in the fee structure. I got some new information today, which I gave you a physical copy of, which is the district's now proposed schedule. I didn't quite grasp when I wrote the staff report to all of you what would where the city's adult recreation programs would fit in the fee schedule, and so that's in the packet in front of you. So essentially what would happen in January 1st is we would no longer maintain the grass athletic fields during the summertime at the school district properties, but we would also not schedule those fields. So the school district would schedule all of their own properties, and we would schedule all of our properties as well. And then as opposed to having each other's use be free, we would charge each other based on actual use, based on where we fit in the fee schedule. There's some minor things I think that have to be taken care of that Ivan can explain related to We have a water meter at Lake Ridge Middle School. That's just the outdoor water meter that right now the city pays the bill on, and we'll be transitioning that back to the district. And then we have some equipment for irrigation that's tied into our remote sensing for how we irrigate that we'd have to figure out how to take out. And those are minor administrative details I feel pretty comfortable that Ivan and his staff can handle. I think Ivan and I did a rough estimate of what we think the fiscal impact is, because we have reduced expenses, but we also have increased expenses, and we have a little lost revenue. We think it's close to revenue neutral for the city. However, the one reservation I would say is that we haven't done a full calculation of the charges for gymnasium space for our adult recreation programs, and so those programs may get more expensive than we thought when we wrote the staff report originally, because as I said, I wasn't fully understanding where the city adult recreation programs would fit in with the fee schedule. So we need to go back and sharpen our pencils and do some more math. But I will also say, tied to that, because of the way Ivan and the Parks Department operate, Recreation has a policy that they cover 100% of their direct expenses for recreation programs, and that's how they set the fees for their programs. And so if we incorporate the gymnasium rental charges, it'll probably increase the cost of those recreation adult rec programs pretty substantially. And so we're going to come back and talk to you anyway about what you want to do with those programs in 2022, 2023, and maybe 2024. When the Lake Oswego Recreation and Aquatic Center comes online, we'll have our own gymnasium space, and hopefully we can readjust our operations at that point to get those programs more affordable for our users. All right, with that, I will take any questions. Councilor Wendland was my partner in crime in working with the school district, and so he may have as many answers to questions as Ivan or I do, but I'd be happy to take your questions. I don't really need action for all of you, other than I do need you to give me direction to take the steps to terminate these agreements.
Councilor Boop.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan and Martha. I'm talking, because I play in a league, and we use most of the LOSD field, like Lake Ridge, Lake Oswego High. Those are field. Actually, that's the only places in Hazelia where we play now. We are not playing at the West Lake field, because generally it's a difficult field to play. So I don't think that we have more field than them. So, and the fees, for example, giving an example, the fees to play football is still high. Some of my playmates are telling me what's going on. Like this year we have to pay OSA and pay the city. It comes to around $70, or, for some it's easy, but it's not affordable for all. So I am afraid that either we are going to, how are we going to solve this question, like of the field?
Well, I'm going to defer to Ivan for the detail, but I will also just remind you all that you've approved Rafik Park, so we'll have yet another city-owned turfed field available in addition to Hazelia. So I think that the addition of at least one field will help us. But Ivan, do you want to give a more detailed answer?
If I can, yeah. Thank you for the question. So when it comes to the outdoor fields and specifically like soccer, so for the last 18 to 20 years, we've been involved in basically the scheduling for all the school district properties, with the exception of the high school properties, as well as the city-owned properties. So when we do that, we have the prioritization that was spelled out in the 1988 IGA, which categorically said this group gets first priority, second, third, fourth. With the direction that it's going, we will still do that, but we'll be doing it, like for city fields, it will be city youth programs, city adult programs, then it'll be community youth programs, and we'll still have a prioritization. So when we're talking about city leagues that we run, those city leagues, will be at the top of our prioritization for the city-owned fields. The district, based on theirs, will be all school-related programs, followed by city youth programs as well as community youth programs. And then adult city programs will be prioritized after that. So our prioritization is a little bit different. So what you've experienced is us trying to balance the use of fields for all user groups throughout all of the facilities, whereas now what you'll see is a higher reliance of using city facilities for city programs. So we won't be in control of being able to balance the use as well. So, but we'll be prioritizing our program use on the city-owned fields.
And then the question of affordability.
So the question of affordability, we do have a program. We do actually have a sponsorship program or a scholarship program that the department uses, and we do offset for people that have financial need for recreation programs. And then going into what we're talking about here, really the cost for running the programs, and we haven't got into the details of the exact hours that we'll need and what will be available and how that will all prioritize. But we're not anticipating that there's going to be a huge effect to outdoor adult and youth sports that the city runs. Where the effect will be is indoor, because obviously we don't have any indoor, with the exception of the tennis center, we don't have any indoor athletic facilities. So that's the part that we're evaluating right now on and how we do that. And as Manager Bennett said, we will be re-engaging with the council as we study that a little bit further and find out really what those costs are.
Everything answered? Yeah. Okay, for now. Councilor Rapp.
2 questions. One, unfortunately, Ms. Sen, our college and pro careers are over. As much as we'd like to disagree, I think, with our current injuries, I think we've finally realized that those days are gone. However, we can still save the children, right? So I said, inside joke between Ms. Sen and I about our needs. So one of in the supporting documentation, there was some language around some difficult transitions for our youth programs like Lake Oswego soccer, Pacer basketball, and things like that. So for me, it's really important that we prioritize kids in any way with our parks, cities, and school district. Obviously, we don't have a lot of say in the school district's use of their parks, but can you walk me through a little bit more about the impact to, say, Lake Oswego Soccer Club? Because my understanding as a father whose kids are in it is I thought this was really part more of the school district, because it all seems like it's a feeder program for Lake Oswego High and Lake Ridge. So how severely impacted or not so severely impacted will our youth programs be in the various parts of the community?
So to address that, I think the number one place that the youth sports organizations are going to be impacted is primarily they'll have to approach 2 entities in order to reserve their fields. So when they're planning their season, that's going to be the biggest inconvenience. Part of what we've done leading up to this too, and I believe in the packet there's kind of the proposed facility use fee. I worked with Lou Bailey with the school district, and we coordinated through the studies that we've done of surrounding communities that offer community recreation, as well as the district did a fee study for surrounding school districts for facility use. So we negotiated some fees as close as we could get them for across the board. And what we found in that from the first time that we sat down with them was that school districts charge a lot more for access to their athletic facilities than cities or park and rec districts. So in some cases, some of the user groups will actually see, for school district use of properties, will actually see a cost reduction on some of those. We were able to kind of negotiate with them so that we're close in our fees. And for some of the organizations, they'll see a slight uptick in the cost, both for our city facilities and then for some of their like elementary school facilities, they'll see a slight uptick. Again, though, this is also based on the fact that, you know, our fees have been stagnant for about the last 5 years. So there was going to be some change, but the overall effect is really going to be that the organizations are going to have to plan their schedule with 2 points of contact as opposed to one for most of their scheduling, which they've done.
Okay, because my concern is really about how the prioritization happens, because it seems to me in the school district's prioritization list as well as ours, those clubs I'm speaking of are considered local nonprofits, and those seem pretty low on the priority list. Am I wrong, Martha? Okay, I like being wrong. That's good. Okay.
So in the staff report, I gave you a bulleted list of the 9 organizations most affected, and those are considered local youth sports organizations. So for the school district, I think they're second after district priorities, and for the city, they're second after city priorities.
I read it as their D, other local nonprofit use.
No, those are mostly, well, and I think the district's fee schedule sort of does it best, or outlines it. There's a lot of nonprofits that bring kids in from outside of the community. So it's the Lake Oswego oriented groups are primarily drawing from folks who live here, and you're right, many of them are feeder programs into the school athletic programs, but a lot of the kids who play are never going to play competitively. So
whoa.
Yeah. A lot of the kids who play, my kids both played soccer until they were in the 3rd grade, and then they stopped because they weren't very good.
Me too.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, so I think they're second.
That's helpful. Thank you. Okay, the final question I have is, I know back in January, the conversation with the school district was to work towards a new IGA. With this termination, is that ending the negotiation with school district and everyone's, you know, just parting ways amicably, or is there going to be any future IGA going forward, or is this it?
Let me take this one. I'm disappointed, and I'll be on public record, that there's a little bit of a pushback of having a IGA between the two entities. As somebody who's served on now both sides and been a member of this community for a long time, I think we need to work together as two entities, because most users, whether they're youth or adults, are taxpayers, and they want the adults to figure it out. I think the agreement is fairly close to what it probably should be on paper. My fear is that as time goes on, new councils, new school district people, new staff at the city may not know the history or may not know different things. And then, as always happens to Lake Oswego, some group comes in and they wiggle their way into some side deal or something else. And if you have an agreement between the two entities that is agreed upon, it's kind of harder to not follow that. I would hope that we would be able to sit down eventually and have, even if it's just a MOU, to say, hey, let's keep the priorities the same. Let's make sure that, philosophically, I believe that, to Councilor Boop's comment about affordability, I kind of think fields and recreational programs are somewhat like the library. It's a service that you provide, and we don't charge people a quarter a book when they check it out because that covers our costs. It's I think there's a certain baseline recreational service that we should provide to our community. But that being said, I'm hoping that we continue to have a shared philosophy that we're only covering costs and we're not trying to make money off of our citizens, because they've supported these fields and these athletic facilities through bonds and through tax dollars. And to me, it belongs to the taxpayer. It doesn't belong to us. And so I'm hoping that we will re-engage in a conversation sooner or later to make that clear with everyone. Right now, I think the district is trying to figure out where dollars come through with their recreational facilities, which is not their primary purpose in life, it's educating kids. So this is not a huge part of their overall budget, but I think it's an important part that we need to continue a conversation with. So maybe go through the breakup and then we can start dating again.
That's good. Thank you for that. So in light of that, I'm fully supportive of us doing this, but under the condition that we move towards whatever that future MOU looks like, because I do believe that there needs to be a very good, strong, positive relationship between the city council and the school district. And whatever we can do, whatever those next steps are to kind of start building that relationship up, whatever way it looks like, then that would be my only request. So, thank you.
Right. Councilor Manns.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with Manager Bennett and Director Anderholm, and who else will be involved to as gently unwrap this as humanly possible. I just want to make sure that the public is completely clear on who will be handling what, and I don't know what that would look like, but with all the brilliant professionals, both in this room and in the building in general, I'm sure that will work out, because I think that is going to be the biggest problem, perhaps even less so than the dollars and the master fees and charges are involved. But yes, I mean, I hate the same, I'm going to say it. It is what it is at the moment, and we are all professionals and we'll work through it. Thank you so much for all the work that everyone, my colleagues, staff has done on this.
And to address your question on communication, we worked with the school district to come up with a consolidated communication plan. So when we're looking about Councilor Raff, about the youth organizations, our staff did reach out prior to any of this going to the public and had both phone conversations with all of the organizations that we have relationships with, and then followed that up with an email that details the timing of the split, who to contact, and specific contacts within both organizations for their needs. So we're doing that. We're going to continue to push that information out and be really proactive in our communication.
Great, and maybe something in Hello LO, because that apparently is the most read matter of communication in Lake Oswego. Thank you.
Yes.
Very much for that, and thank you again to staff and my colleagues.
So if a council would like to make a motion to direct the city manager to work with the Lake Oswego School District to terminate in 2 phases the 1998 intergovernmental agreements governing athletic fields and gymnasiums, I would take that motion.
I move to direct the city manager to work with the Lake Oswego School District to terminate in 2 phases the 1998 intergovernmental agreement governing athletic field and gymnasiums.
It has been moved. Do I have a second? Jump in together. I'll take 4 seconds.
I'll second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing there's no discussion, Ms. Linder, will you call the roll?
Council President Winland?
Yes.
Councilors Wynn?
Yes.
Burdick?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Mans?
Yes.
And Inboot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Motion passes unanimously.
Yeah.
We were wondering how we do a tie with an even number of counselors today, so it's good we didn't have that. Our next item agenda is the consent agenda, and everyone's had a chance to review it. I do want to thank our city recorder, Ms. Linder, for all the work that she does on all these minutes. It's kind of reliving your life. And some of it's just wonderful, and some of it's like, really, did I say that? But I do want to appreciate, you do it with such clarity, and you make us look really good. So I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Information from council. Do we have any updates? Councilor Burdick? Oh, Councilor Manns? Oh, Councilor Manns, you actually pushed the button. Thank you.
Yeah. I have three things. I'll make them as brief as possible. First of all, because we have Director Anderholm here, I would love to thank Director Anderholm with for his work with Kerry Westland of Travel Lane County in getting the Shalane Flanagan plaque up in front of the bridge at George Rogers Park, the entrance to the pathway. It's absolutely fabulous. It commemorates the World Athletics Championship here in Eugene in 2022. So I'd like to give a shout out to our governmental partners in Eugene. Shalane Flanagan, who lives here in Lake Oswego, won silver in the 2008 Olympics. She also was the, let's see, what else did she do? 2017, I believe, New York City champion. She's a runner, in case you haven't figured that out. So this is a really fabulous thing. It was a perfect example of a quick intergovernmental way to get something cool up, which is the plaque. So thank you to everyone involved in that, including the person who put the plaque in the ground. The second thing is, as liaison to the planning committee, we took a tour of the homes that we saw in our demolition discussion, and that was very interesting. It was nice to be able to have the planning commission out to actually see the homes. Now most are completed now, but to get an idea of what the land looked like, the geography of the land, and so on and so forth. So that was very productive, and I think lent perspective for the Planning Commission, and also was a team-building exercise for future tours around town. So I was delighted to be a part of that. Thirdly, but certainly not last, was the opening, the grand opening of the Flourish sculpture on State Street. Again, with Director Anderholm and various others. City manager was there, and Jan Wirtz. We were quite the crowd, various city councilors, my colleagues. So it's a gorgeous sculpture. The artist was there. I think it will add value to the city. I think it will add value to the Arts Committee. And that is what I have to report today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manns. Councilor Burdick?
Thank you. I just wanted to let people know that at the farmers market on this Saturday that our library will be there. And so if you want to learn about the many programs that they're offering this summer, it's a great opportunity. They're actually going to be piloting a rover library project in July and August, which will allow more access to other areas of the community. So they have those details. They also have more details on LO Reads and just all the wonderful activities that our library is doing. So there's a lot going on there, so check it out.
Right. I'll just update you on you may be getting some emails here and there as the liaison to the Parks and Rec group. They are doing a fabulous job at working with the pickleball concerns with the neighborhood and then our pickleball players. And it's like threading a very, very small needle that they're working on. They've done some mitigation to put some sound barriers in. They're taking some testing results for sound. And so they've met with the different groups, and there's probably not a super easy resolution unless we happen to have an extra park with a lot of land and a big checkbook to put in more pickleball courts. So this will be an interesting discussion as we go forward, and the whole idea is to try to keep peace among everybody, and they're doing a great job of navigating that. And so, but just in case you get input, I want to let everyone know talks are in discussion, and they'll continue. Councilor Boop?
Yeah, I just, I'm glad that you are solving this issue. That's a problem really for our neighbors out there. I just wanted to thank Councillor Wen for the organization and Kim V and all that of the Asian American. It was wonderful 2 weeks ago in Lake Oswego. It made you proud to be in Lake Oswego, to see that happening. And, you know, thank you. We are very proud of our Asian fellow citizens in Lake Oswego. And on the 19th, it's Juneteenth. It's wonderful. We are, you know, Lake Oswego is really moving forward. I think we are getting close to the blue zone, and I'm very happy about that. I will be the one speaking, not closing this time. So we want all the council to be present.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted to say. And thank you again. I'm very happy that you are solving the problem of the pickleball. It's
Well, it's not solved, it's in discussions.
Yeah, but
So-
yeah, but it's you are solving. I say you are, you know.
Problem solving.
No, I'm using the present continuous, you know, which is yeah. I'm a teacher. So thank you for doing nice work.
Councillor Mans.
I'm so sorry. I'd be remiss without wishing everyone and thanking everyone for all the work that's gone on at the beginning of this Pride Month. So I am delighted to say, as a mother of LGBTQIA kids, that it is delightful to see all that's going on. So thank you to everyone out there who's been participating.
Thank you. Reports from officers.
Well, Councilor Maboop Stoll, I was going to remind you all that Juneteenth, which is also Father's Day, Juneteenth, which is also Father's Day, so make sure before you come down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon till Millennium Plaza Park that you call your dad, or if you can. Some of us can't anymore.
What a good time to celebrate Father's Day.
Bring your dad with you.
And Pride Month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing I just want to note is that City Recorder Linder and I have a little scheduling dilemma, and so I'd appreciate it before you guys leave the building if you would talk to one, or don't do it as a group because we don't want to do it. It's not a meeting. We need to sort of check your schedules. So I'd appreciate that help. That's all I have.
Well, it's wonderful because I said we would be done in an hour and I still have 2 minutes. So I've got about, I'm going to wrap it up with this city council meeting is now adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone. We're out early. Thanks, everyone.